Hi, my name is Cole. I'm the founder of Backlift, which is a platform for building and hosting web apps using Backbone.js or other JavaScript MVC libraries. And yeah, so Backlift is basically trying to do two things. We're trying to make websites easier to build and deploy, and we're also trying to help basically help people learn how to use JavaScript MVC libraries like Backbone. The presentation title for today was Auth using Backbone.js and Backlift. That was a little bit of wishful thinking on my part, I think. I was hoping to be able to show a demo of the auth system at work here today, but it's not quite ready. So what I'm going to do instead is give sort of like a quick overview, show you how to kind of like deploy an app using Backlift, and then I'll sort of talk through some of the decisions that we're making on the auth side. So basically, Backlift uses a command line tool. So once you have the command line tool installed, you can just do like a Backlift create. I'm going to do a create new app. There are a couple of different templates. You can do like Backlift create : to do. That'll create the to do app. We're going to have the auth app ready soon, but for now, let's just do the standard default.
Can you increase the font size?
Oh yeah, is it really small? That is pretty small. My track record hasn't been good so far with messing with the display. But
just Control-Shift-Command-Shift+.
Oh, yeah. How's that? That looks a little better.
Maybe one more.
Oh, a little bit more? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'll change into the new app directory, and then you just Backlift push in order to push the app up to a server, and then you can like Backlift open. I'm actually also going to Backlift admin. This is both. These are both pages that it'll launch in your browser. So here's the app that I just deployed. It's kind of a simple single page app with a tutorial. So this kind of gives you some more ideas, like kind of gives you an overview of what's in the basic app. And it also shows you this little example, which I'll do in a minute, which allows you to kind of create some dynamic content and see how how to start pushing it, posting asynchronous stuff back to the server. And then there's also this admin panel, which is pretty empty right now. There's no collections, there's no history. It just kind of gives you an overview of the files that you've uploaded. So I'm going to open up the folder in text editor, and I'm also going to run Backlift watch, which will automatically sync any changes that I make. So here's the basic sort of app template. It's got an app and a libraries subfolder. Libraries includes sort of everything you need for a simple Backbone app, and it also includes some styling from Bootstrap. And then in the scripts folder, I'll show you the main.js file. There's also a templates folder which includes JavaScript templates, so you don't have to cram those into your HTML file. But for now, I'll just kind of show you what we've got going on here. Hold on, let me make this bigger too.
That one, unfortunately, you can't.
Awesome.
Command comma and then font size, and then in the size one. It's pretty easy. Just type.
Okay, why don't we do this? Can I do just like?
Can you just zoom in?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
There you go.
So, is that better? Is that legible?
Awesome.
Sweet. So, yeah, main Backbone.js just has like a view and a router, and the router just has this one route for the main page, which it just renders a template into. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment out this like full chunk of code, which is going to activate a view and a controller I'm sorry, a view and model for being able to create these dynamic tracks. Once I save the file, hopefully this will have updated. Yeah, so now this little section here is live, and I can like look around, which makes some little dinosaur tracks, whatever. Cute.
So is that running on the on your server? Or is it
Yeah, so that's actually, so I'll show you that right now. That's actually posting stuff. If I run the admin console, you can see that it's discovered a new collection, which is the tracks collection. And I've also now got some history here. You can see like I posted a few tracks to that collection. And I can kind of just like quickly show you sort of, I mean, the tracks is pretty simple, just has a model, and I guess this is kind of important. So one of the philosophies behind Backlift is to try and make the JavaScript code that you're writing as portable as possible, so that if at some point you did end up sort of outliving or outgrowing Backlift, that you wouldn't have to rewrite all your front-end code. And here sort of, you can kind of see that at work here. There's only one thing that I'm doing with this Backlift app, a Backbone app, to make it functional on Backlift, which is I'm prefixing the URLs with Backlift. So once I've done that, basically anything that I send here, once I send this post to tracks, it's going to recognize that there's a new tracks collection. It's going to, you know, it's using a schemaless document store, so using MongoDB. So any JavaScript that any JSON blobs that I send to it, it's just introspecting and finding out sort of what that is. And that's kind of where the platform is mostly right now. If you wanted to try it out, you can go to let's see here. I go to backlift.com/dashboard. It'll load up. Well, you can sort of create a new account here, and if you use the invite code alpha3x, that'll be available for a little while, probably through the weekend. So if you want to jump on and give it a shot, you're welcome to do that. And that's just the high level of like, yeah, of what's going on so far. So, any questions about that before I go for it?
How do you add the backend?
How do you add it?
Well, yeah, like if I want to serve the data from Rails or Django or something.
So right now, that is sort of what Backlift is providing, is to provide a back end and to host your app for you. So when you Backlift push, it's pushing up to the Backlift server. It's packaging up all those assets and making them available publicly.
What are you using on the back end?
So right now there's sort of two parts. There's kind of the accounts and administrative part, the sort of Backlift homepage, and then there's also a Backlift API server. Both of them right now are written in Tornado. The Backlift API server is intentionally small with the idea that like we'll be able to sort of replicate that in Node or in like Sinatra or something like that in the future. And sort of the long-term goal is that at some point, if you want to be able to export your app, you could basically choose to export one of those different platforms, and you'd end up with your own version of it. I don't have a timeline on that, but that's kind of the thinking there.
So basically, it's like a quick way of bootstrapping a Backbone app.
Exactly.
And pushing it to the cloud.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully this will be useful for both for people that are sort of getting started and learning Backbone, but also folks that maybe are building more like sort of creative folks that are working with a bunch of different clients that want to get stuff out to their clients quickly, have them sort of start hammering on the UI, maybe even entering some data as they sort of flesh out the rest of the functionality.
So you can't develop on this unless you're connected to the internet?
Right now, that's correct. Yeah.
Oh, so the watch actually is uploading.
It is, yeah.
Files.
Yeah. It uploads directly to the server.
How about the scalability? So when there's a lot of requests, you're gonna bring up more.
Yeah, that's part of the advantage of sort of using a service like this, is that we can take care of some of those problems and then sort of just make it like basically create an admin interface so you can scale up or scale down your servers as necessary. That stuff's not ready yet, but that's definitely the direction we're
So
headed.
where are your servers? Amazon or?
Right now, it's it's a combination of stuff. Most of it's is on a Linode box, but we'll be migrating off of that soon. So I don't know how much time I have left, but I can kind of like briefly, give sort of a couple of talking points about what we're doing with with our auth approach. Basically, what we're trying to do is to embed as much of that information in the models themselves. So, we have essentially a login API. So when it's similar to the last talk. So you have sort of like a few API endpoints for logging in or registering. And then once you're logged in, you've got a session cookie that the server looks at. And essentially then at that point, once you have a session, when you create new objects, those objects get an attribute associated with the current user. So you get a user attribute, and then you can set permissions on those objects either through the client code or through sort of a validation API that we're working on now. So I mean that's that's super hand wavy and high level, but unfortunately we sort of like we're cramming to get ready for this, and I think what kind of came out from the last week of working on it is that some of those things that we were hoping to defer, like building sort of a validation, the technique for having the user specify backend validation code, it turns out we're going to have to be basically building a lot of that along with releasing the auth model. So probably shouldn't be a surprise, but that's what we're working on now.
So for defining services, I think in this current infrastructure, there are a lot of services who talk to a lot of different services.
Sure.
And you usually need some OAuth through authentication and whatnot, and you don't want to store this in your back line. But you have somewhere, have you thought about that, or what's that new solution to that? Like, can I store, is there like a key store that I can only use on the back end, or is it like a wrapper for that?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple of different directions to go there. One, I think, there's sort of like one side is basically just having like a straight up plugin system where like where the platform tries to anticipate some common use cases and sort of make those available with the hopes of being able to capture like, some, not 100%, but hopefully some relatively large percent of possible apps. That obviously like, has some significant limitations. The other side of just sort of being able to run arbitrary code on the back end through or sandboxing it somehow, that's kind of definitely more interesting approach for developers. And I think it's just a question of the target audience. Initially, our target audience isn't necessarily your sort of like pro developer. It's more folks that are either prototyping or getting started learning, or maybe they're sort of trying to make a wider, a platform that's accessible to sort of a pretty wide audience, with the necessary sort of like a trade-off there that it perhaps won't be as powerful for certain really, I guess, custom use cases. And I guess how we're trying to sort of mitigate that a little bit is by making sure, first of all, that that the front end code that you're writing will be able to be migrated to something that's more custom eventually, if it's necessary, and also there's a couple other techniques that we're playing with there. But that's the initial goal, is more kind of this like plugin approach. I'd love to talk to folks that have built more sort of sophisticated kind of sandboxing approaches on a back end, to kind of like talk about some of the trade-offs there. So that's a decision we're working on right now. Cool. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah.